Here's how hiking up a mountain with one of my best friends in 2018 took me from being poor and broken to doing $150,000 a month in sales on Amazon in 6 months. Let me set the scene for you a little bit here. Ignore the date at the very top, that'll be relevant later, but this is the only photo I have of my living situation from 2016 to just shortly after this photo was taken. How I got here, which was sleeping on a twin mattress for over 2 years in a small room that my parents gave me in a house that they were renting because they had to sell the house that I grew up in. They were on the verge of bankruptcy, and I had to sleep next to my mom's computer stand, and I had just enough room for a dresser and that. Anyway, in order to like sit or do anything in that room, you had to fold the mattress up against the wall. Woe is me, right? But how I ended up on this twin mattress starting in 2016 for 2.5 years is that in 2016, I graduated from film school, which is a very impractical degree, I must say. I mean, if we're being real, I went back to film school because that was my passion, and while I was there, I started selling on Amazon and put myself through school, except I had no clue as to how to run a business. I just made enough money to make rent and feed myself. And I was also able to go on a study abroad trip that I funded myself as well. But when I moved out of college, I didn't know how to grow my business, and I had nothing to fall back on really, and a lot of anxiety, and no one to set me straight that I would listen to anyway. So I ended up here, sleeping on a twin mattress for 2.5 years, growing out my hair to save money on haircuts, and with a broken tooth that I couldn't afford to fix. And I will quickly tell that story on how the broken tooth came to be, because there's nothing quite as humbling as losing a tooth to a hungry pig. At least for me. This is Piggly Brown. He went viral on Now This years ago for violating a city ordinance in my hometown. He loved to root around and look for things right down the main thoroughfare, Wilson Street. I met him at a place called Buddha Gandhi and Me, which is no longer there. He was the well-affectioned son of Greg Brown, his therapy pig. Or rather, pardon Greg, Greg's therapy pig. We all used to hang out here at Buddha Gandhi and Me, along with several others. My friend Chris, who owned the place with his girlfriend, and a whole cast of characters you could imagine. Dreads, whippets, tattoos, veterans, therapy pigs, all the fixings for a good story. Many there, but just for this one. One evening, we're all hanging out in the back of Buddha Gandhi and Me. Okay, so in downtown Batavia, where this store was, there's the Fox River. So imagine it's like this. And on either side of the river, there's a bank. And so Buddha Gandhi and Me is on one bank, essentially perpendicular to the riverbank. There's a whole row of stores. We're on the back porch. Everybody's hanging out. One guy's eating cheese. Everybody leaves. There's like 10 of us there. Greg leaves to go across the river to McDonald's to get some burgers. And then Chris, the other owner of Buddha Gandhi and Me, goes inside to help some customers, and all of his friends disperse. And it's just me with the guy eating cheese, Piggly, and myself. And Piggly steals cheese from the man. He's very upset. But he was also, so he wasn't really present. And Piggly finishes the cheese and then continues waddling down towards the riverbank, where at the end of the riverbank there's a sidewalk, and off to the right leads a restaurant there. People used to know it as Charlie Fox's. I forget exactly as to what it was then. But Piggly is just meandering, and he was no small pig at this time. He was about that size, and I was the only one there to stop him, so I tried several times to put myself in front of him while holding my beer. I was drinking a Corona with a lime, thank you very much, out of a glass bottle. And if you've ever had any dealings with pigs, they're heavy and low to the ground, so even I, at 6'3", 200 plus pounds at the time, had a lot of trouble getting Piggly to stop. Eventually, we get down to the very bottom of the bank, where he's about to go down the sidewalk to this other restaurant and get into God knows what. So I put the Corona bottle in my mouth, and try to pick him up like this. he starts squealing like a pig, as one does. You could hear it all across the river and the town. It was echoing everywhere. I just break him off the ground, and I have to set him back down. And he had sort of moved the bottle. My buddy Chris finally comes out with some Cheerios and is able to trail him back up to the shop by, giving him the cereal. Well, I sit back down to finish my beer, and sure enough, I pull out a piece of my tooth. Thank you, Pigley. So for his part in my story, that was how that came to be. Anyway, back to the mountain, because this is not just for me, but for you as well. At this time in 2018, again, poor, I took what little money I had to go visit some family and a friend that I had in Oregon. Now, they're not my biological family. That's another story. But Peter is one of my best friends from childhood, and he just so happened to be living where I used to live in Oregon. And so I was staying with my not biological family, and he and I decided to go hike up a mountain, Broken Top. This video you can find on my YouTube, should you wish. Now, there's something very, very powerful about hiking up a mountain or climbing a mountain. It's not just a part of my little story here. Mountains in human religion or mythology play a very important, distinctive role. And so it was for me as well. Think like Zeus and Mount Olympus, or Moses in the Bible and Mount Arafat. To commune at the top of a mountain gives you the opportunity to commune with your higher self, or even God himself. Now, I won't get too into the nitty-gritty of mythology and mountains, because I do want to show you how I was able to make money on Amazon by taking what I learned from being at the top of that mountain and applying it to my business. But just know that, if you're stuck in life, climbing a mountain and baptizing yourself in the waters may very well be the thing that redeems you. That's because it's a challenge, and this became very apparent because I hiked this mountain, Broken Top, with one of my best friends from childhood, Peter. As we began ascending the mountain, it became clear that I was not in as good a shape as he. For one aspect of the transformation that a mountain offers you is that it forces you to make sacrifices, and it challenges you. As you ascend, there's a literal burning off of calories, of things that are unnecessary. You might, if you're on a really challenging hike, you might even drop equipment to ascend further, Anyway, the point is, as we came near the top, this sort of symbolic nature of the mountain became even clearer when the sun shone at the peak as we neared the peak and actually got to a place of baptism, which is actually called No Name Lake, if you've ever been up there near Broken Top. So we stripped down, went in, and it was one of the most refreshing things I've ever felt, right? And then we took notice of the fact that the sun had perfectly peaked as we were there. We kept hiking, and then this was kind of the pinnacle, and we started working our way back down. On the way back down, I began contemplating training for a half marathon that my sister had invited me to do months prior as a means for getting back in shape to best Peter, because I just, didn't want him to be in better shape than me. So this was my workout plan, and this is what started to click and would end up changing my Amazon business forever. I got this from a coach for free. And every time I ran, I would write down my time during my practice. This act of measuring my performance allowed me to improve over time. I would take a picture after every run and note how it made me feel, what worked, what didn't work. And then I ultimately ran that half marathon, and I think I ended up near the top of my age group. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. Then I started thinking, how could I apply that workout program to my Amazon business? Well, this was how. I bought these big wall calendars, and every time I went to go buy stuff to resell, I would write out how much I spent, where I spent it, and then write a paragraph about how it all went. In business, you call these KPIs, or key performance indicators. Because I finally understood how to organize myself, I was able to start making purchases like this, and this, and this, which resulted in this, again, within 6 months. And that allowed me to do things like that, and gave me this, and everything you see now. Even that bottle of Jameson over there. To get back to that date quickly, at this point I was making $30,000 a month. And that smirk comes from knowing that that part of my life was over. at least for the time being.